What is up, everybody? Jordan Diggs from New to Two and Discover the Ride here. We are in front of the IMS Vintage presented by Progressive Garage. I'm here with Randy Marbles of Marble Motorsports. He brought some just sick classic bikes out. I'm not qualified to talk about them, so let's let him lead the show.
Hey guys, Randy Marble, Marbles Motors, St. Paul, Texas. Glad to have you guys come out and see us at the show. I wanted to talk about a few bikes that they asked us to bring out to help support the show. What I've brought is a collection of vintage Yamaha motorcycles and a Kawasaki as well. And we're going to start off and we're going to talk about the very first, the little bitty guy over on the side. That's a 1971 Yamaha Mini Enduro, and it's called a JT1. Until 1973, Yamaha designated their engine sizes by a letter. The J was a 60cc. That was the pride of a kid that wanted to go motocrossing, hand clutch, 4-speed, 2-stroke. We'll move next over to a 1973 Yamaha LT3. And again, the letter designation of L is a 100cc. This one was more of an enduro. Headlight, taillight, you could ride it at night, go honk at your friends, came with a horn and 100% street legal. This particular bike is not 100% restoration. This is just a repaint and a good cleanup on a very, very original Survivor motorcycle. The little JT was a full-on restoration.
So tires for these bikes. I'm just really interested in that for whatever reason. The tires for this bike, you said it's like mostly original. Where do you find tires for something like this?
That's a good question, because sometimes you can find new old tires that are not weather cracked, but for the most part, we have remanufactured quite a bit of the tires for these bikes. Some are some odd sizes and they're just difficult to come up with. But the tread pattern, if you'll notice on there, is what they called universal trials. So it was a combination of street and dirt. So it got good traction out in the dirt as well as and lasted a while on the street, as opposed to a full-on motocrosser that was a big knobby that wouldn't do very well in the rain.
So, and then I got to mention the Mini Enduro here. Where did you find that at? I'd imagine that most of those were wadded up in a garage somewhere.
Most of them got destroyed, and I did my fair share of that as a kid. Actually, I've had my website up for nearly 20 years now, and for the longest time, the bikes found me. I would get emails and letters from people saying, hey, I love what you do. In our garage, we have something and we'd like to sell it to you. And that's how I found them for the most part. That's kind of drying up now, but that's how I found them for many, many years.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Let's take a look at these bikes over here. I see you have a little bit bigger engine specs here. Were these still designated with letters, or were the engine designations different?
That's correct. So we're going to go up in size. The next bike, which is technically called Pearl Yellow, but it looks orange, so your camera's not messed up. It's got a lot of pearl in it, and that is a DT2. And that is a 1972 250cc Enduro. Headlight, taillight, turn signals, etc., fully street legal. And the D stood for 250 cc's. The bike is a 5-speed manual with a hand clutch and, of course, a 2-stroke. So all of these Yamahas we're talking about are 2-stroke motorcycles. And again, this one of the hard ones to find a front tire for.
This bike even has tags on it. I'm not sure if we'll get this on camera. It still has tags on the bike. To me, it's expired a little bit, but still, it's amazing to see that this bike was still ridden on the street even recently.
Yeah, I actually, on all the bikes we do, we get them running and riding, make sure that all the signals and everything work, and basically run them down the street, honk at your neighbors, have a beer, come back home, and put them up and clean them up. So a lot of people purchase these motorcycles for the purpose of putting them in their man cave.
So the green bike here, this one stood out to me as I mentioned. This is an Enduro bike, one of the ones I learned on, but could you tell me a little bit about just, this build here?
Sure, this is not a build. This is an absolute 100% Survivor bike. There's not any paint work done on it. There's a few little tiny scars and scratches on it, but it's just been a cleanup, made sure that everything was running on it. So the model is a 1974 Yamaha Dt 360. Now, as I mentioned, the letter used to designate the size of the engine, but by 1974, they changed all that. All DTs were dirt bikes, RDs were road bikes, and TYs were trials bikes. So this one is designated as a DT 360. Very, very big piston in a single cylinder, real heavy torque, and so forth. And those are even actually brand new tires on that one, because the others were just so old that they were kind of rotted. So we had to do that for safety.
So did someone give you this bike too? Not give you the bike, but this was one that reached out to you as well, or did you have to go hunt this one? Because I feel like a Survivor like this, you had to go find this one.
No, actually, over the years, I've just made a network of individuals that collect these. And the funny thing is, several of these bikes I've owned multiple times. I call them boomerang bikes because I'll sell them. The owner will then say, "Well, I don't want this, two-stroke. I want to get into a Honda or a Kawasaki," and they'll come back and say, "Let me trade this one in." So again, a lot of them are boomerangs. 3 of them that are here, I've owned more than once.
That's a good problem to have. We'll finish out over here with another Yamaha and then the Kawasaki that you have. This white little Yamaha here looks really interesting. Could you, I don't know the size of it. Could you tell me a little bit more?
Sure. That is a TY 250. Sorry. And the color on it is very interesting, and I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but the name of the color is called Toba Pearl, and it is high pearl content, and then the yellow part is competition yellow from Yamaha. It's a color they used for years and years. Bike was designed for trials riding, so that's off-road, jumping up on rocks, bumping through courses, and your whole purpose in life on that was to never put your feet down, and you were scored based on how well you balanced the bike. Everything on that bike is lightened. Even the bolts, the shoulders of them are hollowed out just to save a gram. If you pick that bike up and spin the tire, it'll just spin forever. So really cool bike. Very, very difficult to find that motorcycle because they were all trashed. This particular bike also has what they call the streeted light kit. So you'll notice it has a speedometer down on the front forks, the full headlight and tail light assembly. So it actually could have been ridden on the street. Now this one came back from the depths. That was a real basket case and had to be resurrected.
It does look significantly different than the modern trials bike with the super low seats and just the tiny thin frames. Is that the stock color of that, or is that a custom color that you guys put on?
No, that's a stock color, again called Toba Pearl.
Wow, so I recognize the yellow on it, but that's awesome. Then we'll get to the Kawasaki here. This obviously is a favorite across many generations and many different states for a bike, but tell me a little about what you have going on with it.
Sure. This bike got finished 2 days ago in our shop, and there's still a few little things to deal with on it, but for the most part, Kawasaki was going to introduce their 750cc four-cylinder when they got wind that Honda was doing their CB750, the iconic bike. They went back to the drawing board and outdid Honda by creating the 900. And this was introduced in 1973 as a Z1 was called, and was the fastest street bike available at the time. This happens to be a 1975 version. The name of the color is called Candy Super Red, but it's a very kind of a burgundy, deep burgundy color. This bike has brand new paintwork on it and brand new pipes and so forth, and we're still working, like I said, on a few of the little cosmetics, but wanted to put it together for the show. And these things are still, in this day, still pretty fast.
Awesome. Well, you do have a beautiful collection here, and one of our key goals with Discover the Ride is getting new riders and prospective riders out to the shows. But as in anything, in order to get people to understand the future of motorcycling, it's good to show them the past and to show them the passion and culture that we all have for riding. And this is a beautiful display of that. So we really, really appreciate you having us out and to look at your bikes and to tell us a little bit more about them. Hopefully you get the Kawasaki done. It looks beautiful to me. I don't see any problems with it, but thanks, Randy.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Have a good one.